I stood in my Aunt Margaret Hale's living room, my hands tightly clutching the wedding gift I had spent weeks preparing. The silver wrapping paper crinkled softly under my fingers, but my heart felt light, almost hopeful. For once, I was excited about something that involved my family. "I can't believe the ceremony is finally tomorrow," I said with a smile. Aunt Margaret didn't smile back. Her eyes shifted, her lips pressing into a thin line. "But I saw it," she said quietly. I frowned. "So what?" She hesitated, then forced a gentle tone. "Emily, would you like some coffee?" "Sure," I replied, though something in the air suddenly felt wrong. As she walked into the kitchen, my eyes drifted to a thick photo album sitting open on the coffee table. I leaned forward, curiosity pulling me closer. I turned the page, and my breath vanished. There they were. My family. My older brother Lucas, standing proudly beside his bride Natalie. My parents. Uncles, aunts, cousins I hadn't seen in years. All smiling beneath glowing fairy lights in a garden filled with flowers. Champagne glasses raised. Laughter frozen in glossy photographs. Aunt Margaret returned and froze when she saw my face. "What is this?" I asked, my voice trembling. "Is this from the rehearsal?" She slowly set the coffee mugs down and sat beside me. "No," she whispered. "It's from the wedding." My chest tightened. "But, the wedding is tomorrow." Her eyes filled with tears. "It was last weekend." The room went silent. "But the invitation," my voice cracked. "It said tomorrow." "I know," she said softly. "They gave you the wrong date. On purpose." The words hit me harder than any scream could have. "They didn't forget me," I whispered. "They chose not to invite me." Aunt Margaret reached for my hand. "I begged them not to do this. I told your parents it was cruel." I closed the album, my hands shaking. The gift? The dress? The hope I had carried for weeks, all of it shattered in seconds. This wasn't an accident. This was deliberate. My name is Emily Parker, and my entire life, I have been invisible to the people who were supposed to love me the most. I grew up in a quiet suburb near Madison, Wisconsin. I was the middle child, never special enough to be noticed. Not like Lucas, the golden son. Not like Hannah, the baby everyone adored. I was just Emily. At family dinners, I set the table while everyone talked over me. At Christmas, everyone wore matching sweaters, mine was always different or missing. Birthdays were forgotten. When I turned 16, I waited all evening for a celebration that never came. The next morning, my mother sent a text, "Happy belated birthday. Hope you're okay." I told myself it didn't hurt. I lied to myself for years. At 19, I moved out and stopped waiting. I studied graphic design, then shifted into digital marketing. I worked harder than anyone knew. I helped small businesses grow. I saved. I invested. Eventually, I became financially independent, then successful. I quietly started a property management firm and invested in real estate. My family never noticed. To them, I was still doing computer stuff. Only Aunt Margaret ever asked how I was doing. She remembered my birthday. She called just to talk. She was the only one who ever said, "I'm proud of you." And then, one day, the invitation arrived. The invitation arrived on a quiet Thursday afternoon. I remember it clearly because nothing special ever came in my mail. Just bills, advertisements, and reminders of a life lived independently. But that day, among the clutter, there was a thick envelope edged with gold foil. My name, Emily Parker, was written across the front in elegant handwriting I didn't recognize. My heart skipped. For a moment, I thought it had been delivered to the wrong apartment. But no. The address was correct. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside was a formal wedding invitation. You are cordially invited to the wedding of Lucas Parker and Natalie Brooks. I froze in the hallway, rereading the words over and over. After years of being forgotten, overlooked, treated like an afterthought, my brother had invited me. I didn't even notice when tears started falling. They weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of relief. Of validation. For the first time in years, I felt seen. I told myself this invitation meant something. That maybe my family was changing. Maybe time had softened them. Maybe someone had finally said my name and meant it. I threw myself into preparation. I bought a navy blue gown with delicate embroidery on the sleeves, elegant, but not attention-seeking. I wanted to belong, not stand out. I ordered a personalized crystal decanter engraved with Lucas and Natalie's initials. I booked hair and nail appointments weeks in advance. Every detail mattered. In my mind, I rehearsed conversations that might finally happen. Maybe my mother would ask about my work. Maybe my father would smile at me with pride. Maybe Lucas would introduce me and say, "This is my sister." That hope warmed me for weeks. It followed me through work meetings, grocery runs, quiet evenings at home. For once, I wasn't the ghost. I was invited. Or so I believed. The night before the supposed wedding, I packed carefully. The dress hung perfectly pressed. The gift was wrapped and ready. I even practiced my smile in the mirror. I went to sleep believing tomorrow would change everything. I didn't know that by morning, that hope would be completely destroyed. Aunt Margaret Hale's living room smelled like coffee and lavender. I sat on her couch, still holding the wedding gift, excitement buzzing beneath my skin. "I can't believe the ceremony is tomorrow," I said brightly. She didn't smile. Her face shifted in a way that made my stomach tighten. "Emily." I saw it. Before I could ask what she meant, she excused herself to the kitchen. That's when I noticed the photo album on the coffee table. It was open, as if someone had been looking through it recently. Curiosity pulled me forward. The moment I turned the page, my world tilted. There was Lucas, smiling in a tailored tux. Natalie beside him in a lace gown, glowing. My parents stood behind them, beaming. Cousins, aunts, uncles, all gathered in a flower-filled garden under strings of fairy lights. A wedding. Already happened. Aunt Margaret returned and stopped cold when she saw where I was looking. "What is this?" I asked, my voice barely steady. "Is this from the rehearsal?" She sat beside me slowly. "No. It's from the wedding." My chest tightened. "But, the wedding is tomorrow." "It was last weekend," she whispered. The room went silent. "They gave you the wrong date," she continued, tears in her eyes. "They didn't want you there." The truth crushed me. This wasn't forgetfulness. This wasn't a mistake. It was intentional. I drove straight to my parents' house. I needed to hear it from them. When I walked in, laughter stopped. Lucas, Natalie, my parents, sitting together, flipping through wedding photos. "We never meant for you to come," Lucas said when I confronted him. "You make people uncomfortable," my mother added. "You're like a ghost." And in that moment, I understood. I was never family to them. I walked out without another word. That night, I didn't cry. I sat in my apartment staring at the invitation pinned to my fridge. The gold lettering now looked cruel. I folded it and put it away. Then I opened my laptop. My family never knew what I really did for a living. They assumed I barely scraped by doing something with computers. They never asked, What they didn't know was that for years I had built a successful digital marketing business, specializing in real estate client acquisition. I reinvested carefully. Strategically. I owned properties, including the lake cottage my parents lived in. Years earlier, when they fell behind on payments, I quietly bought my mother's share through my LLC to save it from foreclosure. I paid the taxes, the repairs, the upkeep. They never questioned it. They never thanked me either. I called my attorney, Rachel Kim, and told her everything. "We'll end all financial support," she said calmly. "You owe them nothing." For the first time, I chose myself. Legal paperwork moved quickly. A temporary restraining order was granted. Financial support ended. Then came the eviction notice. 30 days to vacate the property. When my parents received it, they were stunned. They begged. They apologized. Too late. "You had years," I said. "You chose silence." On day 31, the locks were changed. I stood by the lake afterward, breathing deeply. For the first time in my life, I felt free. A year has passed. I live in a small house by the lake now, nothing extravagant, but it's mine. I wake early. I make my coffee. I watch the sunrise without waiting for approval. I still speak to Aunt Margaret every Sunday. She is my family. I no longer beg for a seat at their table. I built my own. And for the first time, it's enough. So my final words: make sure like, share, subscribe, and comment. Thanks you all.